Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I am just fucking ecstatic. I can't believe this. I am going to be interviewing the brother of my biggest comedy hero ever, the guy that made me want to become a stand-up comedian when I was only 2 years old, Sam Kinison. I'm going to be interviewing his brother, Bill Kinison, and I'm pretty excited about it. Just want to talk to him about Sam's backstory and stuff. I've already heard and everything, but I want to hear. I have other questions I wanted to ask too that never gets brought up in documentaries or interviews and stuff about his movie career too and his albums and stuff. And I'm pretty excited about it. It's going to be pretty cool, and I'm pretty nervous because this is the brother of my biggest hero in comedy, and it's just going to be pretty awesome. I just know it is, and I'm just anticipating his call right now, and it's going to be pretty cool. Yeah, I got so many questions to ask about the Comedy Store, about Rodney Dangerfield, and all that stuff. So, yeah, here is my interview with Bill Kinison for my 200th episode.
Hello.
Hey, Bill, it's Tommy.
Hey, Tommy.
How are you doing, sir?
Doing good.
That's great. You're my 200th guest.
Oh, okay. That's a day.
Absolutely. It's such an honor because Sam made me want to be a comedian when I was only 2 years old. Yep.
That's pretty young.
Yeah, well, my dad, he taped the first Rodney special when it first aired, and we used to watch it over and over again. And at that time, I didn't get any of the jokes, but his scream just mesmerized me and changed me from that age on.
Well, I guess it could have that effect.
Yep.
It was one of a kind.
Absolutely. Touched by God, as I say. So, I know that you and Sam grew up in a religious household of Pentecostal ministers and all that, but did you have any clue early on that Sam would become famous?
No, absolutely not. Sam was not successful at anything in his life until he got into comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he never held a job. He never knew what it was to get a paycheck. And, he didn't have many girlfriends growing up. And then when he got married, that turned out bad.
Yeah.
Wasn't very successful in the ministry. So really, until he got into comedy, he really was not very successful.
Mm-hmm. I read in your book that Sam got hit by a car and he was never the same again. What was he like before he got hit?
Well, he was only 3 years old, but he was laid back, fairly subdued. Then after the accident, he was a lot more aggressive, a lot more outgoing, and turned into Sam Kinison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got hit by a car a couple of years ago. I spent 30 days in a coma. God took me and then brought me back, and I'm a lot more blunt than I used to be. I've noticed that change in me, but I'm not reckless or anything like that. I was leading up to that because I was a really bad alcoholic and stuff, so I could relate to that.
Well, that's good then.
Absolutely. So Sam, he leaves the ministry around 1978 and goes into stand-up. Did his decision to do stand-up coincide with his first divorce?
Oh yeah. In our circles, the worst thing in the Pentecostal circles, and if you're a preacher, the worst thing that can happen to you is to get a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Because they used to say if you couldn't take care of your own house, you're not fit to take care of the house of the Lord. So when he found out that she was having an affair, I was pastoring a church in Peoria, Illinois, and he came over, he told me what all happened, and then he told me, he had never met made as much as $5,000 in any 1 year in the ministry, and he was in the ministry for 7 years. And so I told him, I said, why don't you take some time, look down in your heart, and find out what you really want to do? Because I just was never convinced he wanted to be a preacher. He, all of his brothers, well, 2 of us were preachers. He was named after my dad. My dad died, and he felt like he had to do it for dear old dad. And I thought he would take some time and think about it. He took about 5 seconds. Said, I always wanted to be a stand-up comedian. So I said, well, then, set a date, and after that date, never preach again, because if you do, you'll just go right back to it. And so that's how I got into comedy.
Wow. And the story I've always heard is that while he was doing a gig in Texas with Argus Hamilton, Argus told Sam that, he would get him into the Comedy Store if he came to Los Angeles.
When that happened, Sam had already been the Texas Comedian of the Year for 2 years in a row. So he'd already been in comedy for a while.
And that Sam gets to the Comedy Store around, what, 1980? Yeah, around that time, yeah. And for the first couple of years that he's there, he's not accepted by his peers or his audience, right?
No, he's accepted by his peers and his audience. He just, Mitzi Shore didn't think that he was very good, so she made him a doorman for 5 years.
And she put him in at the Westwood store for honing his craft when she made him a regular eventually, right?
Well, he would, all of them kind of worked the Westwood and the Hollywood stores. And she had Sam, I think, run the Westwood for a period of time.
Did he ever perform at the Improv or the Ice House?
No. Mitzi had a rule of if you performed at the Comedy Store, your regular Comedy Store, you couldn't perform at any other clubs there in Hollywood.
And of course, there were some exceptions, but Sam wasn't one of them, of course.
Yeah. And he felt like the Comedy Store gave him his chance to work out his craft, and so he was happy there. He really didn't care to go to the Improv, although Bud Friedman was a good friend of ours, and the Ice House. He just didn't really feel like going there. He just stayed at the Comedy Store. Then later on, he ended up at the Laugh Factory. Jamie Masada. Yeah.
And was he from the time he got there? Was he partying yet?
Oh yeah. He started partying in Texas before he ever started coming here.
Oh, but it wasn't 24/7 yet, like it became later, right?
No, once he started, he had an addictive personality. So he couldn't do anything in just halfway. If he's going to do something, he did it all the way, and that's how he partied. He partied in Texas, and then when he came out to California, it was just an extension of it.
Is it true that after the first year he was there and he had nothing going on, he tried to go back home and preach again?
No.
That was just that's just a rumor out there.
Yeah, that it's not true. He never. Once he left the ministry, he never ever tried to come back and get back in the ministry.
When did Sam meet Rodney?
Sam met Rodney in Houston, and he had been doing comedy about 6 weeks, and Rodney had just played a big arena. The place was called the Arena, but a big venue, and then came over to this small comedy club to encourage the young comedians, and Sam happened to be on stage when he came in, and he impressed Rodney immediately, even though he'd only been doing comedy 6 weeks. So Rodney told me, which he didn't know at that time, that I was his brother, and he said, this kid's a genius. He's going to be big one day. I don't know how long it's going to take him because he's not very disciplined. But that's when Rodney met Sam.
Mm-hmm. He thought Sam would be perfect for the HBO Young Comedian special, obviously.
Yeah, he had to talk us into that. And then he bumped Tim Allen to put Sam on there. And Tim Allen, I don't know if he's happy about it yet to this day.
Yeah, Tim Allen ended up doing one of his other specials a couple years later. I know that.
Yeah. And Tim Allen did all right.
Yep, he sure did.
You know, Rodney would never tell us who he bumped. And then at Rodney's funeral, Tim Allen got up and he's the one that talked about it.
Mm-hmm. So Sam, he took those 6 minutes and just ran with it. And by the end of the night, he made all the other comics look pale. And there were some good ones on that special. There was Bob Saget, Louis Anderson, Harry Basil on there. And yeah,
there was also a guy named Bob Nelson that I thought was, outside of Sam, the best one on there.
Yeah, he did all the characters, like the football players and stuff.
Yeah, that film.
Yeah.
I thought he was very funny.
Yeah, he's a very funny guy. And he's a born-again Christian, too.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that part. I do know that we tried to get him to open for us on tour, and he won't leave Florida. for whatever reason, so... But Rodney, first he had to talk us into doing it. We didn't think anything would come of it. We thought we'd just get a free trip to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And then they did a run through the night before the show, and Sam cleared the room. Then the next night he killed.
Mm-hmm. I actually like what Sam did on the second special a little bit more, because that night, oh man, he was just on fire that night, just raw, a lot more confident. You know, he'd been famous for a little while by that point.
You mean when he was on the Young Comedian special?
Well, the one he did after that, Rodney Dangerfield, It's Not Easy Being Me.
Oh yeah, that was a couple years or whatever later.
Yeah, about a year or so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then Sam blows up and becomes huge off the first special, and I've interviewed a lot of comics who were at the Comedy Store during those first 2 years of Sam's fame. They tell me that it would get crazy on a Monday night when he would show up there, and you never knew what was going to happen. There would be a fight, a stabbing, or shooting, sometimes all three and stuff. I mean, that pretty accurate?
Oh, I don't remember stabbings or shootings, but there'd be fights. I mean, you had a lot of comics hanging around, and one would not like another, and they'd get into it.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of fights and stuff, and there'd be, all the rock stars and everyone coming from the Roxy or the Rainbow to see him and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
He had a big underground following before he got famous.
Mm-hmm.
Of celebrities, rock stars, porno stars, just nice people, and they would fill the place at 2 o'clock in the morning, because that's when Mitzi would put him up.
Mm-hmm.
He had a big underground. I mean, outside of L.A., probably no one knew him, but in L.A., they knew him.
Yeah. He had all the rock stars like Ted Nugent and Billy Idol coming to see him.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And Ozzy.
Yep.
Yeah, that's amazing. The first time I went there 2 years ago, I felt his presence when I was in the original room. There was something so compelling about that room that I felt Sam was there.
Well, they say it's haunted and that he hangs out there, so I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, about all the stories about, that place used to be run by the mob when it was Ciro's and everything.
Yeah, there's rumors of people buried in the walls there.
Yeah, I heard that one too. I don't know how true that is, but, I heard Mitzi's office was pretty scary, I heard.
Oh, yeah, it's a freaky place.
Mm-hmm.
really is. I mean, I'm not big on the haunted places, but if there is, a comedy store would be one of them.
Yeah. His first album, Louder Than Hell, I like that album because all of his classic bits from those 2 Rodney specials and his first HBO special are all on there mostly. But in my opinion, Live from Hell is his masterpiece, and it deserved that Grammy he won posthumously.
Well, the Louder Than Hell, many top comedians, such as Jay Leno, and I can name off a bunch, they thought that was the best comedy album ever made.
Mm-hmm.
And then Live from Hell was kind of a strange story. We recorded it actually in Houston, 4 shows, and but we owed Warner Brothers another album.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we got it done and everything else, Sam felt the material was dated.
Mm-hmm.
And so he owed me money. And so I said, I'll tell you what, why don't you give me the masters? And I think he owed me $10,000. Give me the masters and I'll forget the $10,000. Well, he said, okay, yeah, that's the deal, but you can't put it out on a major label. So I said, okay, no problem. And I was just going to sit on it. And then just a few months later, he got killed.
Mm-hmm.
And so we put all the material together, and that's how that album came about. And the weird thing was that every studio in L.A. turned me down.
Mm-hmm.
Warner Brothers actually paid me a bunch of money not to do it. For them not to do it because we owed them a 4th album. Here's your 4th album. And they was like, no, we don't want to do it. And so one day I was sitting in my office and I was trying to think, oh, what studio would you take this to? And I thought, you know what? Why don't you take it to a rap album? To a rap studio.
Yeah.
And so I went to Priority. They jumped all over it, and we ended up with a Grammy.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, he joked a lot about stuff that was going on at the time on that album, like, missing the Joan Rivers show and Pee Wee Herman's arrest and stuff. And God, there's so much great material on it. I like the one where he's talking about Captain Kangaroo. That one's so funny.
The good news was that if he was alive when we released it, he'd have probably got sued by people.
Oh, yeah.
Him being dead, I'm going to sue a dead man. So.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're both great albums.
Oh, yeah. They're both just great. And on the first one, he does that Charles Manson bit, which to me sums up the whole Manson thing in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And there's a new, ever since Manson died, there's been a resurgence of the whole Manson family killings, and Quentin Tarantino has a movie coming out about it and stuff. Like, people need to go back and listen to Sam's bit about it because it's just so dead on.
He was dead on.
Yeah.
First, Sam didn't do routine. He never wrote a routine.
Uh-huh.
He wrote a routine. Everything was off the top of his head.
Yeah.
And either that was his life experiences or that was his real viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So it isn't hard to figure out what kind of person Sam was. You just listen to his comedy, and that's who he was. Right.
I mean, he didn't write, but yeah, everything was off the top of his head. But he would remember it and do it again later, and sometimes maybe he would change a word or two. Right.
No, I'd say when we were out doing tours, probably 80% of his show was new stuff, and he had to do certain certain bits, so I knew where he was at, how close we were to the end
Mm-hmm.
But he had some rules. First, if it ever went on an album, he never did it again. If he did it on TV, he never did it again.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to talk about, how writers get writer's block and all that kind of stuff. And he never understood that. He was like, how the fuck do you get a writer's block?
Yeah.
And I got stuff I can talk about every day. And he did.
Yeah. I mean, he was always coming up with stuff. I mean, he had a lot of material in such a short period of time,
Yeah.
That first HBO special, though, is so great. I don't think any HBO special in that era was nearly as perfect as that one, and I don't think anyone has done a special at the Roxy since.
I don't know if another one's done it, but I agree with you. It's I think it's the best I've ever heard or ever seen.
Mm-hmm. Actually, about 6 years before Sam did it, Pee Wee Herman, of all people, did his first HBO special there.
Oh, Pee Wee Herman kind of got the short stick on everything.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Compared to all this stuff that's going on now, Pee Wee Herman was an angel.
Yeah. I know. His second HBO special, Family Entertainment Hour, there's a bit where he's talking about when he crashed his vet into the pole,
Oh, yeah.
And he says he crashed Mr. Vet and the police needed a Mr. Explanation.
Yeah, they were looking for him. They put out an APB on him.
Yeah. I remember I was about 6 years old when that news story came up, and I was at that age. I was so scared. I thought they were going to say that he died that night.
Well, he had a special edition vet, and it had like racing tires on it. So any water or anything like that, it would just skid. And somebody had their sprinklers on. He was coming home late at night. They had just all night have been recording. Let's see, what was it that they recorded? I want to say Mississippi Queen.
Yeah, something like that.
And so he had a couple of the rockers and another comedian in the car with him.
Mm-hmm.
Lost control and wedged between the hill and the a vet, because I've got one. A vet, if it's off the ground, you can't open the doors.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to knock out a window, and one of the comedians named Jimmy Schubert had been in a motorcycle wreck, and so he was limping, and so somebody saw him limping and thought, he was hurt, and that's when they called the police. And then Sam called me, and I said, "Dude, do not answer the door."
Wow.
They left some blow and stuff in it, and our attorney took care of everything. But I was like, "Don't even answer the door, man."
Wow. Yeah, I saw Jimmy at the Comedy Store a year ago. God, he had the whole room in stitches. That guy is so funny.
Oh yeah, Jimmy's a good guy.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
And of course, Sam did a great job, and a great cameo in Rodney's movie Back to School. It kills me every time I watch that.
Well, the story on that was that movie was in the can.
Mm-hmm.
Rodney wanted Sam in it, so they went to Malibu for a day and a half and shot all of his scenes, and everything him and Rodney did was improv.
Wow.
Wasn't any script for it. And that's the deal. There's a story behind almost everything, but that's the story on Back to School.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, to me, it's just like one of the greatest cameos ever. And before that, oh my God, I never hear anybody talk about this. Before that, Sam had a small part in a B movie called Savage Dawn.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's a barber and he gets his throat slit. Yeah.
Yep.
How did he get to be in that? Yeah, how did he get the role in that? Really?
Ron knew everybody that was doing this movie and said, Sam would be great. Nobody knew who he was. Said he'd be great as this Christian barber that's trying to convert everybody.
Yeah, that's a pretty funny one. I go to horror conventions and sci-fi conventions all the time, and every time Lance Henriksen is supposed to be there, he cancels at the last minute. And I always want to ask if he interacted with Sam on the set.
Oh, I'm sure they did. Sam was like a magnet. He'd just draw everybody.
Mm-hmm. And of course, he had a memorable guest appearance on Married with Children, which I heard he was supposed to play Al Bundy.
That's not true. There's a lot of rumors out there. He was. No one even knew who he was when Married with Children started, but his appearance on there was the highest rated show they had in their history. Still was.
Yeah, it's so funny and so dark by that episode. Oh, God, it's hilarious. Hilarious.
Yeah.
Is it true that Sam dated Penny Marshall for a bit?
Oh, yeah. He was proud that he did an L and Coke off of her boob.
I remember him saying that on Live from Hell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was proud of that. I went, dude, I was going to pick one. I'd pick Shirley. It wouldn't be Laverne, but, it is what it is.
Cindy Williams, yeah. Yeah, about a year ago, I interviewed Penny's daughter, Tracy, and I was going to ask her if that was true, but then I thought, nah, I shouldn't ask.
I don't think that's the question you want to ask the kid.
Yeah, exactly. So, the night that Sam passed, exactly what happened again?
Well, we had just stopped and got gas at the last station before you got on this river road to Laughlin, which was about 25 miles from Laughlin. And strangely enough, he decided that he wanted everything out of his car, including his pet dog.
Mm.
And so I was telling him, dude, we're 25 miles from Laughlin. He said, no, I want it all out. So I had the guys take everything out. And then he pulled out in front of me, which he never did, because he usually didn't know where we were going. And we'd never been to Laughlin before. And we went a little over 3 miles, and we could see this truck. There's a lot of traffic coming against us that was leaving. And it was getting to be dusk, and we could see this truck. And he was passing a bunch of cars.
Mm-hmm.
And at the last second, he got back in line, but there was another car that was another truck that was his buddy that was following him.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a moment of relief, and then they hit head on.
Wow. And what were his injuries?
He ended up with a fractured skull, broken neck, torn heart, and a torn stomach.
Oh my God!
Which any one of the 4 were fatal.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And wasn't he talking to God or something?
Well, he was talking to somebody. He wasn't talking to us. We didn't know that he was dying.
Mm-hmm.
Because there wasn't. He had a few scratches on his head, and I knew he was hurt, but none of us knew that he was dying. And we couldn't keep him in the car. He weighed 280 pounds. He kept scooting to get out of this mangled car. So we just laid him there on the highway in between the body of the car and the door. And I got his phone and my phone. This is 26 years ago, so you didn't have service everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept trying to get service. And when I first opened the door of the car, he was sitting in his seat leaning over the armrest, and he started telling me why. Why now, brother?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started telling him, just sit still. We got help on the way. Don't move. And but he kept scooting until we couldn't keep him in the car, so we laid him there, and then 3 times it was like he was negotiating with someone, and he was like looking at someone, wasn't looking at us, but his eyes weren't rolled back or anything. I mean, we still didn't know he was dying, and he started like negotiating, going, "I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die." And then 3 times he went, "Okay, okay, okay," and that was it.
Wow. Wow.
So he was communicating with someone. He wasn't communicating with any of us.
Wow. Sam, he never lost his faith in God no matter what he did and go against religion and morals and all that, right?
No. No, Sam considered himself a believer even when he died.
And he'd been clean for a while, had he?
About a year and a half. But you got to remember, for all those other years, he partied almost every night.
Right.
But then his career started going down, and we sat down and had a meeting, and I told him I was quitting. I couldn't handle this anymore, and so for the first time he said, "Well, I've got a problem." And I said, "If you really believe that," because he needed money, so I couldn't take him off the road. And I said, "If you really believe that, there's a place called the Log Cabin out by your house on Malibu. And when we're in town, I want you there every morning." It was an AA meeting. "I want you there every morning." And he did. Sometimes he was drunk. He would still be there, and then he cleaned up. I thought one of the funniest lines that he had was that he'd come out and tell everybody, "I've been clean for 88 days or whatever." And they'd all like cheer, and he goes, "Well, not all in a row."
Yeah, I've seen bootleg videos on YouTube of Sam like playing Vegas and just wasted and not getting any laughs, and it's heartbreaking,
Well, he had one show, but that cost us a contract at Bally's on a New Year's Eve that he was just out of it. And that's pretty much when he decided he needed to clean up.
Yeah. He probably lost a lot of money from those gigs, right?
Well, I got him hooked up with the Sands, and then we did a New Year's Eve, his last New Year's Eve at the Venetian. But we lost a $500,000 contract with Bally's. That's what his contract was. Not counting, he would pick up probably another $500,000 in bonus money.
Wow.
So it cost him. It cost him money.
Wow. He had an amazing short life, that man.
Yeah, he did. He lived it to the fullest. He always said he'd never see 40, and he was right.
I know most people who say that actually live to be 80, but he was a rare exception.
Yeah.
Like Dennis Hopper, he said, "I'm never going to make it to 30," and he made it to what, 75 or something? Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. He knew how to party too.
Yep. So, I saw that documentary that premiered on, what was it, Spike TV back in December.
Oh yeah, I Am Sam Kinison.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. I like those little animation things during the stories and stuff.
When they first, because I was the executive producer on it, when they first suggested animation, I was like, I don't know, but I'd have to see it. And they go, "Well, it's very expensive to do it." And I said, "I'm not going to approve it." So they sent me a couple cuts, and I thought, you know what, this might work, and it really did. I thought it really worked well.
I liked it a lot. Are there going to be any more documentaries or even a movie made about him?
We're still under contract contract with Universal on his biopic, and but you never know in this business. And then we also there's a movie that Crucial, Dr. Dre's company.
Mm-hmm.
They are making a movie out of his routines, making a storyline out of his comedy routines, and so we've got those two working.
Oh, that's pretty interesting story about his routines, maybe about world hunger and all that.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They got Josh Wilson. They got all those guys that are supposed to do it. So it would be good if they get it done. There again, in this business, you never know.
I know. I mean, they've been trying to make a movie about Richard Pryor for a long time too.
Yeah, Richard was a very good friend of ours. Matter of fact, a good trivia question or whatever is Sam and I and Richard Pryor came out of the same projects in Peoria, Illinois. We didn't know each other. So Sam got into comedy, but we actually came out of the same projects.
Wow. That's amazing.
Very few people know that.
Yeah, wow. But Richard, though, he had a pretty hard life growing up in Chicago, though. He had, a prostitute mother and all that, but you guys were good.
Yeah, he actually grew up in Peoria, Illinois, but he had a rough life.
Yes.
Yeah, we had a rough life, man. I mean, we were preacher's kids. We lived in church because we couldn't afford a house. And so we ended up getting very, very good friends, though, and I still hear from the son all the time.
That's great. Yeah, I follow Richard's daughter, Rain, on Twitter.
Yeah, she's a good gal. I know Rain well.
She does a lot of lectures and everything, which I think is pretty good.
Yeah, and I don't know if she does now. She used to do comedy. But, it's if your dad's Richard Pryor, that's a little tough to follow.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, there's certain exceptions. I mean, Damon Wayans' son is doing stand-up right now, and he's doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Well,
you get some exceptions, but it's difficult. It's very difficult for him. I feel sorry for him.
Yeah. I've been doing stand-up 12 years and stuff, and just like our mutual friend Paul Brumbaugh, at the bottom, trying to get my way up, and stuff, especially after my accident and everything, but I'm going to keep going. I'm never going to give up.
Well, that's the ticket. That's how Sam was. He had made up his mind that he was at the comedy store the rest of his life. He wasn't doing anything else in life. He was going to be a comedian.
Well, Bill, this was such an honor. You're an equally amazing man, and your brother will always be loved by everyone, especially me, and I thank you for your time today.
No problem, Tommy. No problem, brother. You have a good day.
You too, sir.
All right.
Well, there you have it. Bill Kinison. Ain't he a cool dude? Oh, that was such a great interview talking about Sam and hearing all that stuff and all those great anecdotes about Sam's life. I really appreciate it, Bill. You were an awesome 200th guest, and I thank you. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, add me as a friend on Facebook, join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes.